The views expressed on this program are those of the producers and individuals appearing on this program and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Sun Prairie Media Center staff, its video service providers, or the staff and elected officials of the City of Sun Prairie.
Hello, and thank you for joining us here on Real Reviews. My name is Jamison Rabbitt, and the man on the other screen from me is secretly a wolf man, and his name is Mike Roth.
True story. When I was a kid, I always wanted to be a werewolf, and I would position myself so that the moonlight would come through my window and just spread all over my bed so that I could wake up and one day fulfill my fantasy of being a werewolf. But it doesn't happen until you're much older. And the cool fact, you know how when you get drunk at parties, you're like, oh, I'm sorry, I was drunk. It happens with werewolfism too. You're just sorry, I accidentally killed your dog. I was a werewolf.
I didn't know where that was going.
I never did that. I'm just saying.
I didn't know where it was going, but I like where we ended up.
All right.
All right, sir. Well, we are continuing on with our social distancing campaign here, and of bringing you reviews of movies from afar. Who knows how long this is going to go? I don't know. And every day it feels like there's more movies that are being switched around. The new Tom Hanks movie is now going to be an Apple Plus film. There's all kinds of crazy stuff going on.
You think this was charged from trolls or just charged from everybody not knowing when they could release to the theater?
I think fear and uncertainty are playing into this.
Yeah.
But hey, that's what drives this show.
We might end up getting good movies in September. When was that ever happened?
It's true. It's true. All right, let's get started. Speaking of great movies, let's get started. I have a film that I saw. It was a VOD film called Capone from director Josh Trank. Stars Tom Hardy as Al Capone, and it is a slow, rudderless look at Al Capone at the end of his life. He's aged. He's riddled with syphilis, which is wreaking havoc on his body and his mind. Dementia's crept in. Tom Hardy playing this Al Capone in the final year of his life is kind of just as you'd expect him to be. He's got a strange, mumbly, grumbly voice. I mean, that's just Tom Hardy and everything.
Yeah.
A lot of old age makeup. Also stars Linda Cardellini as Capone's wife. Stars Matt Dillon and Kyle MacLachlan as some advisors to him, trusted friends. And this film is incredibly boring. Just a poor job of writing anything interesting into this movie. And it's weird because Tom Hardy is one of my favorite actors. I just really enjoy him, and he always makes interesting choices with characters. And he's interesting to watch, even in stinkers of films. And he does things that most actors would never do. But there's just so little for him to do in this movie. It's a lot of him just sitting in a chair, yelling at things that he sees that aren't really there. There's the much talked about, if you've read anything about this film, usually in the first 2 or 3 sentences will be something talking about his bouts of incontinence that we get to see in this film, which is a reoccurring theme in this movie. We kind of just watch this, Al Capone. He's this monster who's just kind of suffering through nightmarish visions. He chomps cigars and soils himself for the majority of the runtime. And I was so bored to tears watching this movie. It just really nothing goes on. And it's just such a weird choice to focus solely on this portion of his life and really a guy who's not the guy that you remember. And I don't know. It was frustrating to me.
You take a look at, there's been other Capone films, and he's been represented in a lot of different things. And really, no one's ever focused on this part of his life. But then again, a lot of famous people, you really don't want to focus on their like times where they're not doing well, it's not as interesting. It's more sad than um, it, good
Not
or any
even
means.
like you could fill it with like flashbacks to moments in his life, but it's a lot of like weird visions that he has, and you're just kind of watching him dwindle out the end of his life after he's been, released from prison because he is an old man with dementia and all these things.
Yeah.
And I mean, Josh Trank, who also directed the most recent Fantastic Four movie, um, and was subsequently then fired from being able to direct the Star Wars movie he was supposed to direct. Like
Mm-hmm.
this movie puts him squarely atop a list of filmmakers who I really question. Like he made Chronicle, which was I thought a really cool superhero movie that was like found footage superhero film. But that seems so far away at this point. Like he's just
Yeah.
made nothing that is interests me at all. And I don't know. Tom Hardy earns this film most of the 1 star that I'm giving it.
Oh
Uh,
no.
the production values kind of rounded out into that the rest of it. There was some decent production value in this movie, but it doesn't matter when you're not interested in anything that's going on, and it just doesn't go anywhere. And so ultimately, I give Capone 1 out of 5 stars. Do not be
Wow.
fooled by this. Do not watch it.
Oh wow. You
Yeah.
could kind of tell by your voice it wasn't going to be a happy review.
And I got to pay for it, which makes it even better.
I saw, yeah, a lot of these movies you're paying a little, not as much as Trolls too, but it's
Yeah,
still, yep.
no good. Anyways, let's move on to another movie that we found at the local Red Box.
I'm talking about Buffaloed, directed by Tanya Waxler, written by Brian Saka, where it's a look at a very intelligent, hyperactive woman named Peg, played by Zoey Deutch. Right? Okay,
Mhm.
sorry. It kind of shows her life as a young girl trying to teach her mom why to save up for her college education and how to invest, and her always working to get that money so that she could go to an Ivy League school and be rich someday. Unfortunately, the cards aren't really dealt to people like that. And even though that's part of a lot of movies where people just do what they work hard for and succeed at, it doesn't really work in most movies, and it didn't happen for Peg either. In order to, after she was accepted into an Ivy League school, she decided to start scalping tickets. She had a friend with a printer, made some Buffalo Bills tickets, and one thing she hates the most in the world is everything related to the home city of Buffalo. Um, she scalped some tickets. She ended up getting a terrible lawyer when she was caught. He attacked the judge because
Yeah.
of who had better wings, and she was sent away for 40 months. If you're a felon, it's really hard for you to get back on your feet when you're out, and you lose your scholarships. So, Ivy League school's not out of her, not in her future, but she could still make it rich by selling debts or cashing in on debts.
Yeah, she starts
Um,
working in the debt collecting industry.
yeah, and I like what I like. One of the things I liked about the movie is they show you the process. They don't just say, okay, she acquires this debt. It's kind of an educational film at the same time where they tell you exactly how this goes on and how unethical it could be when it comes down to debt collection, down to double payments and harassing family members and lying through your teeth about the things they could do to you if you do not pay your debts. That I really liked about the movie. I liked Zoe's excitement through it. I liked her mom, who was played by Judy Greer as
Mhm.
Kathy. I liked her brother, JJ, who was played by Noah Reed. Um, the guy who played Wiz, Ja Courtney,
Jai
he
Courtney.
does come off as a total scumbag perfectly. Um, the only thing I didn't like about this is some of the character motivations were a little bit off. Zoe's character is not likable. She's energetic and she's fun to watch, but she gathers all these friends doing some terrible, like, she's preying on people. And
Yeah.
even though she says she's going to do it right, she really doesn't do it right. And the other conflict I had is her boyfriend, Graham, who's played by Jermaine Fowler. He is a lawyer, and she is using him for the most part. You could tell there is a little bit of chemistry, but her main focus of dating this lawyer is to help her out with her business and to get out of trouble. And she does such terrible things to him, but he keeps coming around like, oh, I really like this person. And she's not a likable person.
Right.
Um,
Yeah. And that's the thing is, I mean, through the whole movie, like everyone in here is kind of a real dirtbag.
Yeah.
And I mean, Jai Courtney is really kind of perfect as the alpha jerk scumbag leading
Yeah.
this racket, shaking down old ladies for money. And you know, everyone's just there to make a buck. And some people are trying to make a buck to get out of Buffalo. Some are just trying to scrape by. And I thought that like the whole plot surrounding her and Graham, I thought was just kind of underserved in this movie. Like
Yeah.
it felt like they went away from it for a while. And they're focused on her battle as she kind of branches off from Wiz, and they're going to war over who, you know, I'm not going to be, you know, losing in a competition, especially to some girl doing my job, you know, and that was like the main focus. And then every once in a while, I'll be like, oh yeah, by the way, she's started a relationship with the DA and all this stuff. And I've seen places where this film is kind of getting compared to like a low rent Wolf of Wall Street mixed with like a dash of The Big Short in how they explain this a little bit. I can see that. I think it's definitely a giant step down from those two films.
It's not as deep, and it's hard to feel like it is as educational. The only educational part is they explain at least what's going on, because this is something a lot of people don't know what's about. But Big Short was more about the education, and you learned a lot. And because of that, they even cut it and gave celebrities to explain what was going on, just so that you could remember some of the parts.
Yeah,
it wasn't quite like that.
That was like a masterclass in editing and explaining something that's way too dense for most people.
Yeah.
This, she kind of just stumbled into it really easily and knew how to do it all because she's a hustler. And it's like, okay, I guess she knows how to do this. Like, she's a whiz at this. I love Zoey Deutch in this. I think she's fun. She's full of energy. She's got like the right amount of snark in this.
Yeah.
I like her. I like all the nods to the people of Buffalo, a town that like really it's a tough town, like hard scrabble people who just love the Bills and survive tough winters. And I kind of liked how Buffalo is a character in parts of this movie.
And pretty much everything about Buffalo. With how many fights were there about who has the best buffalo wings?
Several from the bench. Yeah.
Yeah. And Jermaine Fowler, I really thought he was good. He was underused, and his character motivation of keep on coming back to the same person that really wrongs him on major levels many times and still keeps coming back, that I didn't quite buy at all.
Yeah, it wasn't believable.
I liked watching him. He was good.
Sure. What would you give Buffaloed?
I gave it a 3. I did like the movie. I don't think it's a knockout of the park. It's enjoyable compared to Capone. So there you go.
It is. And that's the order I watched them in too. I came off of Capone right into Buffaloed. It was a breath of fresh air to have something at least fun. And I gave it 3 stars as well. It's fun. It was a nice little discovery at Redbox. You know, you're just looking for a movie. This was fun. It'll work. The next movie we have is another VOD movie, a movie that I plunked down a little bit of ka-ching on because I was interested in this one, and I like the whole universe that this is set in. It's Scoob from director Tony Cervone, who is a guy who kind of exclusively does animation, does a lot of Tom and Jerry, Scooby-Doo, Looney Tunes stuff. And this is the story of how the gang in the Mystery Machine all got together. It's also the setup for the Hanna-Barbera shared universe. We get a lot of nods and Easter eggs to characters that you know and love from Wacky Races. There's a little Easter egg for Flintstones in here.
Oh, no way. That's cool.
And it's how Scooby and Shaggy met. We see them as youngsters. We kind of start with the meet cute between the two of them. And slowly the gang gets together. And when they get together, no one questions that there's a talking dog. That's never, no one says a word about it. And they solve their first crime when the bullies throw Shaggy's Halloween candy into the scary haunted mansion, and they go in to get the candy. They come out holding somebody's mask, and Old Man Witherby, and it's classic Scooby-Doo. One of my favorite parts about this movie is that we get the classic Scooby-Doo intro and song, like that montage as they're doing the song. Nearly shot for shot remake of the intro montage in this new animation style, and somebody else doing the music. But it was like, oh, here comes my favorite part. It's the scary robot that looks down at Shaggy, and all. It was thumbs up on that. We also get the same sound effects from the cartoon are in this, and as the film goes along, we meet Dick Dastardly, who appears as our villain with his killer robots, and he wants Scoob because Scoob is the key to his plan, because Scooby comes from the same bloodline as Alexander the Great's dog. Dick Dastardly is also mourning the loss of his old pal Muttley, one of my favorite characters, right?
So this is after his show, where what was it, the Hanna-Barbera Olympics? I forget
The
the name.
Laugh Olympics.
Yeah, Laugh Olympics.
Great voice cast. Will Forte is Shaggy. They bring Frank Welker back to do the voice of Scooby-Doo, who did it forever. Gina Rodriguez, an actress you love, does Velma. Amanda Seyfried is Daphne. Zac Efron is Fred. And then you add in a bunch of Mark Wahlberg plays the Blue Falcon, who we have the Blue Falcon and Dino Mutt, along with Dee Dee Sykes, Captain Caveman, voiced by Tracy Morgan, join and help the gang. And it's kind of classic Scooby-Doo with like some minor updates. Blue Falcon is going through some daddy drama and trying to find his skills and leadership to help his team. One of the things is Fred doesn't have his ascot, and I mentioned at the beginning, I was like, where's Fred's ascot? Fred. But it comes into play at some point in the film, and it's pretty hilarious when it does. And it's just a movie that I actually had a lot of fun with. Some good gags, some kind of laugh out loud moments in here. If you love Scooby-Doo and like that Hanna-Barbera universe, I found it to be a lot of fun. I see it getting a lot of mixed reviews from people, but I really enjoyed it. I would watch another one of these, and I didn't regret dropping $20 on it.
This particular movie, I think it was a trailer that killed me wanting to watch it, and therefore I watched other movies instead. We had enough to pick from. One of the things I hated about Scooby-Doo was that little series in the late 80s where it was a pup named Scooby-Doo. It was terrible, and they started just introducing all these new characters, and I can't stand when they take a good cartoon and they're like, we're going to make it fresh by adding a baby or make them all babies. And the trailer showed them mostly as little kids. So and
that's like the first 10 minutes of the movie.
They should never show that trailer then.
They want to show the meet cute between them, but yeah, it's 90% of it is them on classic Scooby-Doo adventure.
I probably should have watched that instead of the other movie that I watched instead.
That's all right. So Scoob, I give 3.5, edging on 4.
Oh,
it's close. Like I had a lot of fun with it. The whole family had a lot of fun with it. We all just kind of hung out and watched it. So I would recommend it. When you get a chance. So.
Very cool.
The next film, the last film we have, as far as our reviews go, sir, you watched the film. We both watched the film that was on Netflix this week. What do you got?
We got another Happy Madison film. But interestingly enough, there was no Billy Madison in this one. It's called The Wrong Missy. It's brand new on Netflix. It is directed by Tyler Spindle and starring David Spade, who we haven't seen do anything in quite a long time. David Spade, he is newly single. He goes out on a date with someone who is extremely hyperactive and odd, quite toxic and destructive all at once. She is brilliant, but there's nothing in her head that governs what is appropriate, what's right, or what's wrong. She just does it. And David Spade desperately tries to get rid of her. A little bit later, a little time goes on, David Spade does find someone he really likes, connect on many levels. She happens to be a winner of a Miss America pageant. They got a lot of things in common, but they had to leave each other because it was an airport and everybody had to get on their plane. He thinks he has her number. He starts calling her. You know, I didn't know Missy is short for Melissa. And this was his first date. He ends up texting Melissa. Yeah, and
The
ends up
wrong
taking
Missy?
her, the wrong Missy, and takes her to Hawaii, where they have a hilarious time. Only if it was funny. That was it. There's It's supposed to be a work retreat for David Spade. David Spade's character, his name is Tim Morris. He is kind of like the old David Spade, where he's still kind of snarky, a little bit whiny, but a lot toned down than what we used to know him in other films.
Kind of sleepwalking through half of this movie, too.
Most of the jokes, of course, is watching Laura Lapkus, who is the Missy character, do all these odd things. But for the most part, this movie is just slapstick jokes over and over and over again. There's been four major falls where people should have probably died. Rob Schneider, of course, shows
he's got to be there.
Missing some fingers because of a shark attack. It's every 10 minutes someone could be killed, but it's just supposed to be funny. If you like slapstick a lot, you might sit back and just laugh your head off. If you like some kind of anything else, you're not going to get anything else. It's just pretty much watching people get hurt, and that's it.
Yeah.
I mean,
the plot is incredibly simple. The jokes are not nuanced in any way.
No.
Here's the twist. I actually enjoyed it.
No!
And there's one reason why. Lauren Lapkus makes me laugh regularly. She hosts a couple of podcasts that I listen to weekly. And there's something about, she's rarely ever in movies. She seems to show up in terrible movies. She was in Holmes and Watson a couple years ago, just the worst movie of that year. I don't think she makes good choices in her movie career. But there's nothing here that I can defend as not being stupid. But sometimes, for whatever reason, sometimes stupid works. And it's okay to enjoy a stupid film that's just trying to make you laugh with absurdity. And like David Spade, his effort kind of comes and goes in this film. I feel like he's just kind of checked out for a good chunk of this film. But Lauren Lapkus, like, her performance was actually really like fearless, and she was committed to this character 100%. And I think a lot of people wouldn't go over the top like she was.
You could tell that she got plenty of rest before every scene, because she had more energy than anybody else. A lot of the other people, though, wouldn't.
Oh, no, everyone else in this movie was just kind of there, not doing anything.
The actress who played Barracuda, I forget her name, but
it
felt like she was just reading her lines. And it was nice to see Nick Stewart again. Haven't seen him in a while since Reno 911 is the last thing I could remember him in. It was nice seeing him, but not as funny. No one was in their prime. I
would agree with that 100%. Like I say, I enjoyed it, but when I talk to people about it, I'm like, look, it's stupid, it's terrible. But I think it's Lauren Lapkus is the reason I enjoyed it. I liked her. I also think David Spade must have had an influence in the writing, because the plot really centers on him having to choose between several women. Also, Sarah Chalke, who plays an ex-fiance, shows up into the picture, and it's like basically got three women there who are like, hey, David Spade, hey,
David
your
Spade,
wig that you have on, that horrible wig you're wearing. But I don't know. What did you give The Wrong Missy?
I gave it a 1.5. I'm sure this movie is part of, if it's really that stupid, sometimes it gets good. And we both have movies like that. I think this one just didn't quite make it to that point for
Totally
me.
Understandable. I give it 3 stars. Like,
nice!
I was laughing. What do you do? I was laughing. Now, I might rewatch it and be like, oh, that was awful, actually. But I enjoyed it. So, whatever.
Those stupid movies, if you like them, they tend to grow on you more and more.
Still better than Capone.
That did not hit that borderline.
Yeah. Let's move on, sir, to a return to our Spielberg Summer Blockbuster series. This week we go back to 1981 where Mr. Spielberg collaborated with his good friend George Lucas and came up with this fun little story where he took Han Solo out of the Millennium Falcon, gave him a new adventure, an incredible theme song, and some of the most iconic moments in film history for Raiders of the Lost Ark. Raiders of the Lost Ark, like set in 1936, he's fighting Nazis. The whole opening scene in the jungle where he's going to steal the golden idol, there's the booby traps, the giant ball chasing him. It's all just incredible. The theme song, that indie theme song that John Williams did, like iconic, right? And we also get his fear of snakes, which kind of pays off later in the film perfectly. I think it's really cool that he's a history professor who moonlights as a great adventurer and is tasked with finding the lost Ark of the Covenant before the Nazis do. We meet Mary and Ravenswood, kind of this tough love interest with this combative dynamic with them, and the whole movie is like all these indie movies, but Raiders specifically is like this film of constant movement, exotic locales, treacherous bad guys everywhere they go. You get the bald Nazi, that great bald Nazi fight, and then you get the classic fight with the thuggy where he's doing all the sword play and then he just shoots him.
And from what I hear, that was not scripted.
It was just because Harrison Ford had the stomach flu. He's like, I'm not doing all your choreography. Get back to my trailer.
It's a fantastic movie with great iconic characters, but the elephant in the room is Indy didn't do anything. I mean, really. I mean, it's all about him. He's so cool, but the Nazis would have gotten the Ark. They would have opened it. They would have all died, whether Indy was there or not.
Yeah, but sometimes it's the road you travel more than the destination at the end. I think
it's my favorite Indiana Jones movie as well, and
I think it's like
most of them are great.
It's a perfect, flawless action adventure film, like perfect.
Yeah.
They made it for $20 million. It brought in nearly $400 million in its initial run. Won 4 Oscars along the way. And it's launched a franchise that outside of one movie was one of the best trilogies ever.
Yeah. Didn't it play side by side with E.T.? I feel like
E.T. came out in 82.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Just one Spielberg a summer. That was it.
Yes. Yeah. Take it easy. Can't have them all. But yeah, Raiders, man, it's one of the best. It's one of the most rewatchable movies for me. I don't know how many times I've seen it, but you hear that Indiana Jones theme, and oh man, I love it. It's good. I'm gonna go watch it again. I just watched it last week. Kids loved it.
You do it again. What else are you doing with your time?
Yeah, what am I doing
besides work? Yes.
Now bum. Anyways, next week, sir, we are going to have a special guest joining us. Should be a lot of fun. I'm excited to have a special guest on. We're also going to be talking about, on Netflix, there's a film called Lovebirds, which was supposed to be in theaters. Got pushed back, then got pushed over to Netflix, starring Kumail Nanjiani and Issa Rae, which I'm excited for. We also have Guns Akimbo, a film starring one Mr. Harry Potter.
Yeah.
Found it Redbox. I know you've seen it already.
Yeah, I had fun. Or did I? I don't know. I gotta leave the suspense.
We also have a film called Come to Daddy, which will be on Amazon Prime, as well as another Spielberg summer blockbuster movie, which I'm excited to talk about. Before we leave you, though, we want to, of course, thank our sponsors, Marcus Theaters, The Palace here in Sun Prairie. Thank you for sponsoring us. Tom Reichel, to a friend of the show. Always doing some fun things down there. If you want to see what they have going on, check out their app. They got a whole bunch of stuff going on, but they're also they have their new buckets in for when the theater does reopen. You go down and get a
bucket.
Bill and Ted bucket. Bill and Ted Face the Music bucket for your popping corn.
I got to meet Tom. He brought the popcorn and the pizza right to my car. I was like, "Oh, this is awesome!" I've met him before. We've done.
I was gonna say you've met him a few times.
It's really cool. It's been a while, isn't it?
I can't wait for them to reopen so we can have Tom back on and have a little reunite. We haven't seen him in a while.
It's going to be a spectacular show. Even if there's no movies, it's going to be a spectacular show.
Oh God, dude. Anyways, we always want to thank them. Let's see. Yeah, next week we're gonna have fun, and make sure you tune in to check out who our special guest is going to be. Is it going to be Steven Spielberg himself? We've reached out. I can't tell anything yet, but we've reached out to him. He's not doing anything either. Come on, the guy's just doing.
Well, we've been on public access for this long. People know us now.
That's right. All right, sir. Let's get out of here. We will reconvene next week. But until that time, I'm Jamison.
I'm Mike Roth.
Thanks for watching.